In this video, we'll discuss what to do if there's material or grease on top of your inductor seal. Now, the inductor seal is what goes into the pail. It's the blue seal around the perimeter. There are various types and some other colors, but that seal needs to form a tight bond, or well, a tight seal with the pail or the drum if it's a larger pump. So first step is to make sure that the seal is the correct size for your container and that it's in good condition. Sometimes an older seal, after a couple years, will tend to curve up. It takes the preset shape that it has when it's in the container. If you raise your pump out and you see that the seals are shaped like a bowl, they might be worn out and they might not be putting enough pressure on the material. There are a few other things that might cause it. So if your seals are the right fit for your container, there's a few other things that might cause material to end up on top. For one, there are O-rings and O-rings around the pump stem in this central hub. There are O-rings between the hub and the inductor plate, which is in the pail. And where the seal is connected to the inductor, there is a series of screws, and those screws also have a sealing washer on them. If all those sealing washers are in place and the screws are tightened properly, then that should not be the problem. But one thing that you can see, especially with materials that separate, if you have a grease that sets in the pail and oil settles to the top of it, where the thicker grease is on the bottom and you can see a layer of oil on top, that's a material that is referred to as separating, oil separation. So that thin oil is a little bit harder to seal, and that can weep its way through some of those areas, the screws, the central seals around the pump stem, and even around the pail. If all the components and the seals are in good working condition, tightened properly, there is this vent valve that you would use when you load a new container to bleed the air from the container. You'd want to make sure that that's not leaking and that this T-handle is tightened in properly. This is also an inductor vent, and if that is in tight, it should form a good seal. So you'll want, if you can tell, if you can look and see where the material is coming from, then it's easier to diagnose. If you've already got a thick layer of grease on top of the inductor seal, it's obviously going to be hard to diagnose where it's coming from until you get it out and clean it off. Okay, so you've gone through the inductor assembly. You don't think that any of the connections or seals, the connections are loose or the seals are missing. Even an inductor seal that has a pretty good fit to the pail or to the drum may leak if you have too much ram pressure, downward pressure on the inductor. So you would check the pressure regulator setting for the ram. Keep in mind that anytime you're running, the lever is down so that there is downforce on it. But if you have a thin material, there really does not require much downforce, so you can decrease the pressure by turning to the left. If you have too much pressure, it can push the seal down, and with thinner greases, they'll just come right up around the sides of the seal. One other note, which would be much more obvious, is if a pump gets worn out, some of the seals that are inside this section of the pump can wear out and can leak, but you will see the grease running down, and that will be pretty obvious that your pump needs a rebuild or a replacement, or perhaps, depending on the model, just tightening of the packing glands that are in it. If you have a relatively new pump and perhaps your container is a size that you weren't expecting or is slightly different from one of our standard size containers, if the seals are a little too small, they might look like a pretty good seal, but they might not be quite adequate, so you'd want to contact us. Make sure you provide the dimensions of the container, and then we can assess and make sure we've got a good fitting seal for your container. So that's it. That's how you get material on top of your inductor seals in your container. Those are the causes, and if you need any more help troubleshooting or replacement parts, let us know.